I'm here with Gary Franscioni, co-owner co-owner of Gary's Vineyard, along with Gary Franscioni. Really, one of the two properties or three properties that really put Santa Lucia on the map, and really here to talk about Gary's Vineyard and how it all got started. The vineyard. I know you and Gary are good friends, but how good of friends, and how long have you been able to be friendly with Gary Franscioni?
Since I could remember seeing him when I was 3 or 4 years old. Our parents go back generations. Our fathers both went to the same high school in Gonzales that Gary and I went to in 1971, but they graduated in 1937, so they've known each other forever. And they've been good, long-time friends, as well as Gary and I. And the star story, how we began, was I was farming. We were both farming vegetables, but Gary had planted the Franscioni vineyard naturally in 1982 and was doing some remarkable things with it. And so I got interested ever since college. I was on a fermentation field trip. I was a food science major to Napa in 1976. So after 14 or 15 years of trying to accumulate some capital, I always had the bug to plant a vineyard. So naturally I go to Gary to get some advice and everything, and the first thing he told me was, I told him I was planting 16 acres of Chardonnay. He goes, "No, plant Pinot!" And I said, "Okay, that makes sense. I'll plant 4 or 5 acres of Pinot." So I planted Brazil as my home vineyard, and then the next year we kept talking, and more tastings and things evolved, and so we began to look for a piece of property together. We decided we wanted to do a joint partnership because of longtime family friends, and we had this goal of making great Pinot Noir, and he had some pretty good budwood, and he wanted another site besides Franscioni Vineyard, which I really commend him for being one of the outstanding farmers in this area, because that site it's on the southern edge and it's tough to grow, but he does a remarkable job. But yet he wanted to search out further, closer to the bay, and find another spot to see what he could do, how he could develop this clone even further, or this varietal for that matter, in this region. And so in 1997, we partnered up and planted the Gary's Vineyards. We've gone on to since, purchase the property, etc. And it's now 15, 16 years old. And it's Pinot Noir and Syrah on the property.
How do you differ Gary's Vineyard? Because that's a question I get a lot. How does Gary's Vineyard differ from Franscioni? And I want to hear how you make wines under ROR of both sites too. So
well, it's a cooler site, and it will harvest a couple weeks later. It's the same clone, so it's fun to have the trials of the different barrels from Franscioni, from Gary's, from Rosellas, and the same clone. And I characterize them as going from north to south. Say at Rosellas, you're looking at the red berries, the raspberries and cherries, whereas you get into Gary's, it's more blueberry kind of characteristics, and then as you get to Franscioni, it's more blackberry. Okay. So it's bigger as you go down the appellation. And that's the simplest way I can explain it.
And I think that's a very accurate way of doing it. But really, sometimes you get in trouble when I say that, is because then people think that Gary's is maybe a lighter wine or something, because you're saying, well, as you go further south, Franscioni's a bigger, more tannic, but Gary's is by no means a lightweight. No, if anything, I mean, it's a fairly full body Pinot in and of itself.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct on that. On the Franscioni, you're correct. I think it gets down to then the terroir, the soil of it all. Franscioni's more decomposed granite, thinner soils, where Gary's you get into more sandy clay loam types of soils. And I think those start to begin, as well as the temperature differences, which are, the sites are only 8 miles apart, but the degree days are probably maybe 6 degree day differences. Okay. So with all that combined, the soil and the climate, I think, is where you get your differences.
Terrific. Thank you so much.